Adults who started college at 30 plus in a sea of 18-year-olds. What are some positive and or negative experiences as a mature and non-traditional student? I went back to school at 30 and I would like to share a funny story. I randomly sat next to a girl in my biology class and we would chat before and after class. She was like 20 or so. I knew the age gap was a bit much but I couldn't help developing a bit of a crush on her. But I also tried really hard not to be the weird creepy old guy. So I decided to not act on the attraction in any way. And one day class was cancelled and as I was walking out of the building I ran into her as she was coming in. I told her class was cancelled, and she kind of got shy and nervously asked me if maybe I wanted to do something with her since we had the hour free. My heart skipped a beat as my previous vow to not make any moves on her went out the window and I gladly agreed. I asked her what she wanted to do, thinking she would say grab lunch or something like that. Turns out she wanted me to go and buy her alcohol for a party she was going to that night. I felt like such a tool. Was thinking of a happy ending, and then, ouch. I started my mechanical engineering degree at 27 and I'm 32 now and close to graduating. For the most part, the experience wasn't all that different from when I went at 18 the first time around. I still dated girls, met friends after class, etc. It was surprisingly easy to find people closer to my own age or at least willing to hang out with me. You'd be surprised how many adults there are in college when you start looking. Did I ever feel self-conscious? Yeah, all the time. At the beginning, I felt like I had to explain to everyone why I was still in college, or else they would think I was some loser. Over time, I realized no one really cared. The main advantage is that, well, I'm an adult. I have experience managing time and pressure. The whole thing seemed rather easy the second time through. Honestly, I had already lived and worked out of high school for 10 years. I knew why I was going back to school and what I would be doing with my degree, and it gave me focus that a lot of younger kids don't have. And, as far as jobs go, relating to my professors more than my students was a great thing. I was friends with many of my professors on a personal basis. They were pivotal in helping me find work quickly after graduation. The disadvantages are mostly social. I don't make as many friends as other students because I'm not in their peer group. But frankly that's okay because I really don't want to be friends with 18-20-year-olds anyway. Not meaning offense there. We just don't usually have similar goals and interests. In my own life, I have had to make huge sacrifices. I had to move states, haven't had time to date much, have no money, and have arthritis and back pain from constantly writing and typing. All in all, adults shouldn't think twice about going back to school if it's something that will benefit their lives. My older students are my favorites. They work their asses off. I'm 30. Started going back this last fall as a math major. The kids are amazing, kind, open, smart, really smart, and they care about their world, which is something I can't say of a lot of older people. But they don't engage in class enough. It often feels like a discussion between me and the instructor. I try to give the others plenty of time to speak up, but after a certain amount of time, we just need to move on, so I answer the questions posed. There's also what I call the money disconnect. They don't really seem cognizant of the money they're actually spending going to college. For the most part, I'm very aware of the loans I've taken out to go, and I'm working to get this done in the shortest amount of time and get the most bang for my buck that I can. It's just kind of frustrating that there aren't any real friendships there. I'm certainly friendly with a lot of them, but it doesn't really go beyond that. Give the silence the benefit of the doubt. In high school, we aren't really encouraged to speak and share our opinions, and we haven't really figured out the whole talking in class thing. It comes with age as you get more comfortable with yourself. As you get in upper levels, it may get better. I look really young so nobody knows I'm 30. I feel like a spy from the 90s. The pros. 1. I'm much more engaged in my education than at any other time in my life. 2. I do not give a single frick about what anyone thinks of me. The cons. 1. I get annoyed with their indifference. Like, if you don't want to come to class, cool, but shut the frick up. Play a game on your phone or something, but stop talking and making jokes. Reddit is always going on about the as a mother stuff, but the amount of young dudes who interrupt class to make an irrelevant joke or derailing comment is way higher in my experience. 2. Sometimes their youthful optimism is too much, but that's more about me than them. I'm a math major. There is a senior citizen in every one of my classes. I really admire him for pursuing a degree in math. I taught CS at a community college for years, and every single term I had at least one student who was over 60. My favorite old guy was about 75, and he seemed to have a lot of good interactions with the other students. At some point I learned he took my class so he could be a better volunteer at a senior center. His mission was to help old timers work computers. It's never too late to learn. I'm a college instructor. From my perspective, having had a handful of non-traditional students and a lot of traditional students, older students tend to be a lot more serious about being engaged and getting good grades. They also have a better developed sense of perspective, which isn't surprising since they've had more time to learn. I always really appreciated their input during conversations. I never had anyone pull the as a mother kind of thing, and they tended to be interesting without being overbearing. It was interesting for me too because I've been younger than all of them. It's never been a problem though. I treat all my students as peers, so it's no different with them. I went back to school for a different degree at 26. Had to take some prereqs that were not part of my first degree, so ended up in a few classes with 18-19-year-old freshmen. One thing. Classes with freshmen were a breeze when they were grading on a curve. Not being hungover and actually doing my homework put me leaps and bounds ahead of the rest of the class. 33 here. Finishing second year of undergrad. I started off fairly self-conscious, but actually everyone's just been politely curious, and it's more embarrassing to me out in the world at this point than at class. On the academic side, I'm a lot more focused than your average student, and way more than I was when I was 18 something. So I'm learning the material well and kids will ask me for help. Socially, there's just too big of a gap to really connect there. Kids sometimes try, but I just politely decline and it all goes fine. Getting hit on by young girls is fun though, I will say. As far as professors, I engage with them way more than I would have at 18, and it's been really productive. So I love that part about it. Absolutely all of them have been really supportive and convey that they are just there to impart knowledge. T's more embarrassing to me out in the world at this point than at class. Very much agree with this point. Relating to my own peers who work and make good money is much harder than relating to other students who are younger. When I went to college for the first time, I remember sitting in my classes thinking I've been out of school longer than most of these kids have been alive. That was probably tougher for me than for them. Now I just ignore it for the most part. I go, I study and I get my grades. I don't really get a lot of social interaction out of it. The few that are close to my age I don't always relate with either. So mostly I'm invisible and have a much easier time focusing on the actual education, which is why I am there and what I am paying for after all. I'm not 30 but I am a 28-year-old woman doing an IT course at university, surrounded by 18-20-year-old guys. It is predominantly men in all of my classes. Can be a bit intimidating. I hear about all these stories on here about young IT guys who are afraid of women, but these are smart young guys and I get a bit daunted by it sometimes. They won't talk to me either unless I speak to them, but luckily I'm a people person so it's all good. 20-year-old girl in a computer science major here. God, I wish there were more women in my classes. I was self-conscious at first when I returned at 52. Then I realized I was in a much better position to actually learn the subject. At one point one of my classmates asked a group of us standing outside the classroom, did anyone bother to do the homework? Oh, except our Joy. You always do your homework. Of course I did my freaking homework. It was the only way I could learn and understand. And because I paid for the course, I wanted every drop of information I could get out of the teacher. The first time I went to college, my priorities were getting drunk, having fun, getting laid, with class walk a distant last. I needed that 34 years to grow up enough to be ready to be there. And just cause I was an old guy, it didn't make the eye candy on campus any less pleasant. AI. I'm 31 days away from completing my degree and I'm 35. I started uni at 32 after realizing that I was never going to check my chosen career without a degree. Plus I'd always wanted to go to uni but life derailed that option for me. I was nervous when I started. Most of the students were traditionally aged. There were a handful in their 20s and another in his 50s. The younger ones were on the whole bitchy and immature. I had the experience and confidence to handle that where my younger peers didn't. Whenever I struggled with technology, I'd get help from them. I was then able to help them with life skills. I'd often bring a few of them home to have a home cooked meal and teach them how to cook. The pressure of study is a great equalizer. It is stressful, although I do accept nowhere near as stressful as a war zone. But for some of these kids it's the most intense thing they've done and they're terrified of failure. I'm often in the library wiping away tears and giving hugs, and the occasional man up speech. We have different tastes in music, different taste in clothes. Jesus, when did the 80s revival start? And entirely different cultural references, but we mix it up. I've introduced them to other food experiences than Nando's and McDonald's. They've introduced me to Tinder and stuff like that. I genuinely made an effort to get to know them, which helped. The older guys in my class haven't and spent the last 2 years moaning they feel isolated. The advice is to jump in. It's disorienting when you realize they can be old enough to be your kids, but they keep you young. Plus, they remind me how far I've come in terms of maturity and how I've faced challenges. After having attended my local community college for 4 years on a program sponsored by my employee, all I can say is, for the love of God, lay off the Axe body spray. I'm 35 years old. I recently left the Marine Corps after a decade spent with my brothers in arms. 2 combat deployments to Iraq, 1 expeditionary unit deployment to the Pacific. I started college in January this year. I think the most difficult thing for me, and other veterans I've talked to, is reconciling the stress that the traditional students talk about being under. College is the easiest thing I've done since 2004. In the Marine Corps, you show up on time, which means at least 15 minutes early, in the proper uniform, with all of your required equipment. These kids show up late, if at all, to most classes, don't pay attention, text or listen to music during lectures, and then talk about how stressed they are come exam time. I won't go into a tirade about my stress versus their stress. Their stress is the only kind of stress they've known, so of course on a scale of 1-10 on the meter, it's somewhere in the 8-10 mark. Their perspective is limited by youth and lack of experience. I don't hold that against them, but when you compare a 10 on their scale to my scale, it's a 2 maximum. What stresses me out more than any homework, paper or exam is the lack of structure in my life now, combined with depression, feelings of isolation, and social anxiety. Compared to those, school is easy. I know how to learn now. I've taught courses with traditional and non-traditional students in the room. It's interesting to see them both at work. My traditional students would complain about the amount of reading, in a history course no less, and whine a lot. My non-traditional students would often short sell themselves and would make regular use of my office HRS. I returned to college in my late 20s, 28 to be exact, and being in classroom with younger kids, some who clearly gave zero fricks about being there. If they were quiet and didn't disrupt the class, I didn't mind. It's the seat warmers who would show up 20-30 minutes late to class, who would cause drama, and or argue in class that pee me off. I went back at 31 to get a law degree. Most of my classmates were 22, just coming out of undergrad. I was nervous about the process, but it ended up being a great experience. Positives: I knew how to budget my time and study, I had perspective and real life experiences to bring to discussions, and come job interview time I had a lot of success because I had worked professional jobs before and knew what to and not to say when you want a job. Negatives: nobody understood my cultural references and I didn't really understand theirs. Lots of Disney TV shows I'd never even heard of. One time I made an I pity the fool joke in class and it fell completely flat. I had some non-trad friends who had a harder go of it, but I really think that was their attitude making the gap. They were often remarking how different the young students were than us old folks or how immature they were. I tried to relate and not make age an issue, and overall I thought the majority of people I met were very accepting and readily my friend. After a while both they and I would forget about the age gap, and more than once I've had a 20s friend say something like, oh she's our age, when trying to explain to me who a certain person was. I don't think age should ever get in the way of a person bettering themselves or doing what they really want to do in life. I loved when winter was ending and yoga pants season started again. That and being the older guy in class. Electrical engineering stuff. I was working in the field and could bring real world examples to what we were learning. The young kids loved that because it helped them understand what the heck we needed to know this for. Also they looked to me for leadership on projects and project management tips. Group work was actually pleasant. The younger students helped me with the math end of it, seeing as the last math class I had taken was well over 10 years prior. I also was a part-time student, so they helped me a lot with the ins and outs of campus related stuff. I had no clue where to go for parking passes, the best food, best coffee, printer that isn't occupied for 4+ hours at a time, etc. I enjoyed going back as an older student. Plus those guys could drink some massive amounts of beer. The younger students helped me with the math end of it, seeing as the last math class I had taken was well over 10 years prior. This is the worst part. First class back. First day, I'm asked to take a partial derivative. I know I knew how to do that at some point, but holy crap. So many cheaters. Seriously, every week almost I catch someone cheating. Young college students. Seriously, everyone knows when you're cheating. Best one was the kid that did an informative speech about the mantis shrimp and plagiarized the entire cartoon by the oatmeal why my new favorite animal is the mantis shrimp. It was word for word. I was the only one that caught it. Positive. I find that the subject is more interesting when backed by real world experience. Negative. Some subject can be extremely boring, especially if I'm extremely familiar with the matter and there is nothing new. Admittedly, this is extremely rare case. The background. I am a 30-year-old student currently enrolled in a Bachelor of Agriculture program. Most of the student is around 18. In Asia this is extremely rare. The first thing people, including lecturer, ask me is if I'm married or when I'm getting married. Having experience being a student in NA, back, of biochem, I find that the interaction can be awkward. Comparing NA and Asia, being an older student in NA is easier than in Asia. Pardon the formatting, I'm on mobile. My best friend went to uni for the first time at 39. Everyone else on her course was 18. The same age as her eldest child. She loved it. It was a drama course, so that might have helped, as she's a fun-loving, outgoing person who was more than happy to go out drinking and dancing. There was times in the first year when she got frustrated when she had to work in a group and the other members let her down because they were out partying, but by the second and third years most of the people who weren't there to work had dropped out. Her mother has just been accepted into uni, and she's 71. I'm a little young for the request at 26, but I feel like I can still add some input. I started college twice, once at 18, and again at 24 after a stint in the Navy. The biggest change the second time around is that I was actually used to hard work, unlike right after high school. As for whether I feel self-conscious in a sea of younger people, not really. What do I have to feel self-conscious about? I have actual life experience, friends I've known for over a decade, and absolutely zero need or desire to validate myself with the approval of younger students. It helps that late 20s is actually the average age for my major. I mostly encounter the younger crowd in the mandatory general eds. I just turned 32 and will be 33 when I graduate with dual degrees in bio and biochem. In the end, it was the best decision I made. I am at a point in my life where I can dedicate myself completely to school and my GPA and resume shine for it. Not only do I have a great GPA, but I work as a biology tutor for the university as well as a medicinal chemistry research assistant. If it wasn't for my age and dedication, I doubt most professors would have given me all that responsibility. In the end, I don't regret the life experience I gained in my 20s living real life instead of being stuck at college. I had my kids when I was in my 20s, and while that isn't ideal for many, it is perfect for us since I have a chronic illness. At this point I couldn't have kids if I didn't have them then. I lived through sending a husband to war, which taught me about self-reliance and strength. If I never had those life experiences, I doubt I would be as successful as I am now. I'm 25. More than half of the people in my class are over 30. The small VFX design school I'm attending has many current professionals updating their skill set. The lack of immaturity is wonderful, and the presence of older folks challenges the younger guys to perform at a higher level. Best learning experience I've ever had. I'm a post-grad student, late 20s, went back after being made redundant. While most of my classes are with other post-grads, some are joint post and undergrad classes. I've got 6 to 7 years work experience on most of the post-grads I'm with. Like many others in the thread, I find the stress they are under bizarre. Most seem to find reading 3-4 articles a week or our group assessment tasks super stressful. I'm used to working in an environment where pumping out a 60-page report from research to printing is costed at 40 hours. For me, not the input of others in reviewing, data provision etc. in reality takes 50-55. That last 10-15. On your own times B. The tasks aren't hard, and really just require solid, regular effort. I do find group work and the attitude of others to group work to be a major struggle. Of course it's stressful when you waste time for 2 weeks, then freak out in the last week. Another major WTF moment is having group work meetings. In my experience and work, you would never turn up to a meeting without having done your work, read the required report, whatever. If you haven't, you'd let your colleagues know. The meeting would be cancelled with the prerogative on you to say when you will be ready. Group work at uni seems to consist of everyone getting together, not having done crap, shooting the breeze, and, essentially, nothing happens. The irony of it all is that group work is meant to prepare students for the working world. They're probably not really stressed out about reading or doing work or exams. That's just the socially accepted thing to blame. The kids are probably stressed about their future, finding a job, fitting in, girls, living on their own for the first time, and coping with life in general. And of course you're not stressed about that. You have already been through that. Being in a class of kids young enough to be my offspring wasn't a big deal. The school I attended had a good mix of students but still was about 75% traditional and 25% non-traditional. I noticed, like many, that some older students tended to be more engaged. Most of us were paying out of pocket. That might have been part of it, but what I noticed most was each class quickly established a brain trust. 6 or 7 students who were dedicated to getting both the most out of the class and intent on an A2. Too many people attend college and do not have a vested interest in their being there. They are getting someone else to pay their way or are fooling themselves that student loans are freebies. Due to this, they don't pay attention, don't care, or just do minimum effort. I think a lot of non-traditional students are more vested due to acquired work ethic. I have discussed this with many managers at work and they much prefer someone with a 25-year work ethic tame the work ethic of a 25-year-old. I observed this in classes too. Older students were not nearly as concerned with non-academics, partying, sports, opposite sex, etc., and tended to be more prepared to succeed in classes. I completed 81 hours study in 21 months to complete a BS. I matriculated 49 hours. I know many who have amassed 200 plus HRS and still do not have a degree, not even an associate's, due to no dedicated degree planning or inability to keep from changing their major. I did what I had to do because I was committed to a completion date and failure was not an option. Most non-traditional students are graduates of the School of Hard Knocks and this tends to shape their attitude toward their academics. I was older than my professor in 50% of my classes, and peer age of another 20%, which usually allowed me to better converse with them and communication issues were minimal. To make it concise, non-traditional students for the most part want to get the degree as fast as possible and are dedicated to that goal more than the average traditional student. After reading this thread, I just emailed my local university for information about an engineering degree. I'm 35 and have always been hesitant to go back to school. When I was 19, classes were too easy, beer was cheap, and I dropped out after 2 semesters. Now I know what I want to be when I grow up, and I have experience in the world. Gonna take a little more time to get my finances situated, but I've decided that I should build water towers instead of inspecting them. Thanks Reddit, I needed that. I started college at 29, with 2 preschool kids. I felt old compared to everyone else, but my priorities were so different. I wasn't out to party, and I was there to actually learn, so I spent my time fruitfully. I think being older helps in time management aspects too. I still had a lot of fun, but it was a lot easier to get really good grades than I thought it would be. I started my aerospace engineering degree at 26 and I'm now 30 with a couple semesters left. Socially, there is just too much of a life experience gap to be anything more than casual acquaintances, except in rare instances. I was never self-conscious about being older, mostly because people don't really care unless you put it right in their face. I sometimes get weird looks or get wrongly identified as a PhD student or faculty of some sort. The biggest thing for me was that the younger students would make decisions and act certain ways while lacking perspective. And as someone who has already gone and made a lot of the same mistakes, my input is almost entirely unwelcome. It can be frustrating to watch. There has been a 38-year-old in my civil engineering classes. I have to say something because this man has been my best friend for a few years now. He very much wants to get crap done and will push me harder than my parents to get good grades and do homework. Sometimes I dislike him because of it, but he has made me an awesome student. He had a very hard upbringing, having 2 kids early on, but then he ended up getting fired at his job as a superintendent because his company would not give him workers' comp for an injury he acquired on the job site. He's now, like me, about 2 months from graduating with a civil engineering degree, and I'm also helping him and making sure he gets a 3.0. With all the things he's done for me, I feel like I should help him. If he gets the 3.0 overall GPA, he gets a pretty sweet job at Marathon Oil. Thanks for hearing my little story about Earl. However, he's calling me to come work on our senior project, so I gotta go lol. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.